The jacket was blue once. Denim faded now to something closer to gray. The cuffs were frayed where small hands had gripped them too tightly too often, pulling the sleeves down over wrists that told stories no 9-year-old should have to hide. Rowan Cole sat at his desk in room 108 of Pinarest Elementary, third row, back second seat from the window. His hands rested on the scarred wooden surface, fingers spread wide like he was trying to hold on to something solid in a world that had taught him nothing was permanent, nothing was safe. The jacket stayed on. It always stayed on. Outside Colorado, sunshine poured through the windows. 72 degrees, according to the thermometer mounted by the door. The other children wore t-shirts, short sleeves, some of them already thinking about summer vacation that was still 3 weeks away. Rowan wore the jacket. He didn't take it off for gym class, didn't take it off during lunch, didn't take it off when the heating system malfunctioned in February and turned the classroom into a sauna. The other kids complained, peeled off layers, fanned themselves with notebooks. Rowan kept the jacket zipped to his throat and said nothing. Miss Marlowe Quinn had been counting. Day 1 was March 18th, not the first day Rowan wore the jacket. That had been months earlier, back in the dead of winter when a jacket made sense when nobody questioned a child bundled against the cold. But March 18th was the day Marlowe noticed. Really noticed. The day something in her teacher's instinct, honed over 8 years of watching children, whispered that this wasn't right. A boy wearing a heavy jacket indoors on the first warm day of spring. A boy who flinched when she moved too quickly. A boy whose lunch tray was always empty by the end of the period, who ate like someone who didn't know when the next meal was coming. She'd started a notebook that day. Plain composition book, black and white, marbled cover, the kind that cost 99 cents at the supermarket. Inside on the first page, she'd written the date in a single sentence. Rowan Cole wore his jacket during gym class despite 70-degree weather. Refused to remove it when asked. Day 15, April 1st, no fooling. Rowan fell asleep at his desk during silent reading. When I woke him, he apologized 3 times in 10 seconds. Dark circles under his eyes. Visible weight loss since the semester start. Day 32, April 18th. Rowan flinched today when I raised my hand to point at the whiteboard. Entire body went rigid. Took him 5 minutes to relax again. Later, apologized for being jumpy. Said he didn't sleep well. Day 47, May 3rd. Watched Rowan give half his sandwich to another student during lunch. When I asked if he was still hungry, he said no. But I saw him staring at the other children's trays with the kind of focus that isn't about wanting. It's about needing. Day 59, May 16th. The last entry read, "Today I'm keeping him after class. Whatever he's hiding under that jacket, I need to see it." The final bell rang at 3:15. The sound of children erupting from their seats filled the hallway, a wave of noise and motion that crashed against the classroom door and swept most of Marlowe's students out into the Colorado afternoon. Backpacks, laughter, shouted plans for who was going to whose house, whose mom was bringing snacks to soccer practice. Normal kid sounds. The sounds of children who went home to refrigerators full of food and bedrooms with actual beds. Rowan stayed in his seat. His hands were still spread on the desk, but now they were trembling. Just slightly. The kind of tremor you'd only notice if you were looking for it. Marlowe was looking. She closed the classroom door quietly. The sound of the latch clicking into place made Rowan's shoulders tense, made his breathing go shallow and quick. "Rowan," Marlowe said. Her voice was gentle. Deliberately gentle. The kind of gentle that took effort, that had to be constructed carefully because everything in her wanted to scream at what she suspected, what she'd been documenting for 59 days. "You're not in trouble." The boy didn't believe her. She could see it in his eyes, the way they tracked her movement across the room, the way his fingers curled into fists and then released over and over, an unconscious rhythm of preparation for something bad. Children who grow up safe don't move like that. Children who grow up safe don't catalog every adult's position in a room like they're calculating escape routes. "I just need you to trust me," Marlowe said. She pulled a chair over, positioned it in front of his desk, and sat down. Eye level, non-threatening. Everything the training courses had taught her about approaching traumatized children. Can you do that? Can you trust me for 5 minutes? Rowan's jaw was tight. 9 years old, and he had the tension of a soldier in a foxhole. His eyes flicked to the door, to the window, back to her face. Measuring, calculating. She could almost see the thoughts running through his head. If he ran, where would he go? If he stayed, what would happen? If he told the truth, who would pay the price? I've been counting, Marlowe said quietly. Did you know that I've been counting the days you've worn that jacket? Something flickered across Rowan's face. Surprise, maybe. Or fear. It was hard to tell because the expression was gone, so quickly buried under the careful blankness he wore like armor. 59 days, Rowan, since March 18th, every single day, even when it was hot enough that the other kids were complaining, even during gym, even during recess, when you sat in the shade and watched the others play kickball. The boy's breathing was faster now. His fingers had stopped their restless curling and were now gripping the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles had gone white. I need you to show me what's under the jacket, Marlowe said. I like this jacket, Rowan said. His voice came out rough, like he hadn't used it much recently. It's my favorite. Rowan, I'm just cold all the time. I run cold. My mom used to say that before he stopped, swallowed. I just run cold. Sweetheart. Marlowe leaned forward slightly, not too much, not invading his space, just enough to close the distance between adult authority and child vulnerability. I'm not asking because I care about the jacket. I'm asking because I care about you. The words hit him like a physical blow. She saw it in the way his entire body jerked, the way his eyes went wide for a fraction of a second before he could slam the shutters back down. But it was too late. The crack had appeared in the wall he'd built around himself, and through that crack, Marlowe could see the truth. This child was breaking, had been breaking for a long time, was very close to shattered. Please don't call them, Rowan whispered. The words were so quiet, Marlowe almost missed them. Call who, she asked, though she already knew. Victor and Vanessa. His hands were shaking openly now. Please, if you call them, they'll know I told. Victor said if any of us ever told anyone, he'd make sure Ren and Leo got sent somewhere worse. He said there are places worse than our house, and he knows people who run them. Our house, not home, house. The distinction mattered. How long has this been happening, Rowan? The boy stared at his desk, at the lightning bolt scratch in the wood that he'd memorized over months of sitting here seeking safety in the only place in his life where nobody hit him. Since October, he said finally. 7 months. And nobody's asked you about the jacket before today. Rowan almost laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was the sound of a child who'd learned that hope was dangerous, that trusting adults led to disappointment at best and pain at worst. The counselor said I probably just like routine. Mr. Patterson from the main office called Victor and Vanessa. They told him I have attachment issues with objects. He picked at the frayed edge of his jacket sleeve. The CPS lady came to the house last month. Vanessa put us in nice clothes and told us to smile. She told the lady we sleep upstairs in the bedrooms. She told her we eat 3 meals a day. She told her we're happy. Marlowe's hands were shaking now, too. She pressed them flat against her knees to stop the tremor. What did you tell the CPS investigator? Long pause. Rowan's jaw tightened, release tightened again. I smiled, he said. His voice had gone flat, empty. The voice of a 9-year-old who had already figured out how the world worked and found it wanting. Like Vanessa told me to. Why? Because the last time I told the truth at my old placement before the Canes, nobody believed me. My caseworker said I was acting out for attention. They moved me to a different home. He looked up, then met Marlowe's eyes with a gaze that was far too old for his face. It was worse, so I learned. I learned that telling the truth doesn't help. It just makes things worse. Marlowe closed her eyes. 2 seconds. Just 2 seconds to master herself, to push down the rage that was building in her chest like a living thing. When she opened them, Rowan was still watching her with that terrible ancient patience. Rowan, she said, each word came out carefully measured. I need you to show me what's under the jacket. Right now. Not because I'm going to call Victor and Vanessa. Not because I'm going to send you back there. But because what happens next depends on what I see. The boy looked at the door, looked at the window, looked back at her. Then slowly, so slowly it hurt to watch, he reached for the zipper. His fingers fumbled with it, shaking too hard to grip properly. It took him 3 tries to get the pull started to drag it down from his throat to his sternum. The sound of the zipper teeth separating was loud in the quiet classroom. Each click of metal on metal felt like a countdown to something irreversible. When the jacket fell open, Marlowe saw the thin gray t-shirt underneath, worn thin enough to be nearly transparent in places. No brand name, no logo. The kind of shirt you got in a donation bag or a thrift store bargain bin. Rowan pulled up the left sleeve. Marlowe didn't gasp. She trained herself not to react in front of children, had learned in her 8 years of teaching that an adult's panic becomes a child's terror. So she kept her face still, kept her breathing even, while everything inside her chest turned to fire. Bruises. Purple ones fresh, maybe 2 or 3 days old. Yellow ones older, fading into the sickly green of the final stages of healing. And between them, in the places where skin hadn't been damaged enough to discolor, she could see the distinct shapes of fingers. Adult fingers. Someone had grabbed this child's arm hard enough to leave prints. Not once, multiple times. The bruises were layered, overlapping a calendar of violence written on a 9-year-old's skin. She looked at his right arm. More bruises, different stages of healing. This wasn't one bad night. This was systematic, ongoing, a pattern that stretched back weeks, maybe months. Who did this? Marlowe asked. Her voice came out steady. She was proud of that. I fell, Rowan said automatically. Rowan, those are finger marks. I bruise easy. That's a belt mark on your shoulder. I can see the edge of it from here. The boy's eyes filled with tears, not the dramatic sobbing of a child trying to manipulate, the quiet overflow of someone who'd been holding back for so long that the dam was finally cracking. Victor, he said, he uses his belt when he's really mad. Vanessa holds us down sometimes. She grabs our arms so we can't move. Us, Marlowe's heart was hammering now. You said us. Who else? Me and Ren and Leo. The tears were falling, now silent tracks down his cheeks. Ren's 8. She has bruises on her legs. She wears long pants to hide them even when it's hot. Leo's 5, Miss Quinn. He's 5 and he doesn't talk anymore. He used to talk all the time back before the canes, and now he barely says a word. Marlowe's training kicked in. Document, stay calm, get the information. Process the emotions later when you're alone, when you can scream into a pillow and cry until there's nothing left. Where do you sleep, Rowan? The garage. 2 words. They landed in the quiet classroom like stones dropped in still water, sending ripples of horror outward. The garage. There's a deadbolt on the outside of the door. Victor locks it every night at 10. There are 3 mattresses on the floor. No sheets. The floor's concrete. There's a bucket in the corner for when we need to. He stopped, swallowed. There's a bucket. Marlowe's hands had stopped shaking. Everything had stopped. The world had narrowed to this boy, in his words, in the careful, clinical way he described 7 months of hell. What do they feed you? Vanessa gives us whatever's left over. Sometimes rice, sometimes crackers. Most days I don't eat until lunch at school. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I give my portions to Leo when there's not enough. He's the littlest. He needs it more. The pieces were falling into place now. The weight loss, the exhaustion, the way Rowan had given half his sandwich to another student last week. Not generosity, survival instinct, the learned behavior of a child who'd been hungry so long he couldn't stop trying to feed others even when he had food. Did you tell anyone, Marlowe asked, before today? I told the CPS investigator. In April, she came to the house. Rowan's voice had gone flat again. Vanessa put us in clean clothes. She moved us upstairs to the fake bedrooms, the ones that looked nice with the posters on the walls and the stuffed animals on the beds. She told us to smile and say we were happy. Did the investigator interview you privately? No, Vanessa was in the room the whole time, standing right behind me with her hand on my shoulder. He demonstrated placing his own small hand on his shoulder in a gesture that might have looked affectionate to someone who wasn't paying attention. She asked if I was happy. I felt Vanessa's finger squeeze. Just a little. Just enough. So you said yes. I said yes. The tears had stopped. In their place was something worse. Resignation. And the lady wrote something in her notebook and talked to Vanessa for 20 more minutes, and then she left. And that night after she was gone, Victor took off his belt and told us we'd done good, that we'd passed the test. And then Rowan stopped. Couldn't finish. Didn't need to. Marlo could fill in the blanks. The classroom door opened. Both of them jumped. Rowan's hands flew to his jacket zipper, fumbling to close it to hide the evidence. But standing in the doorway wasn't Victor or Vanessa or anyone who could hurt him. It was Wren, 8 years old, long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail that had seen better days. Wearing jeans despite the heat, just like Rowan had said. She carried a backpack that looked too big for her frame and her eyes. Her eyes had the same too old quality as her brother's. I forgot she started then stopped when she saw Rowan's face, saw the tears, saw the jacket hanging open. Rowan, her voice was small, scared. It's okay, Rowan said quickly, too quickly. The automatic response of a child who had spent 7 months being the strong one. It's okay, Wren. Miss Quinn she's just... But Wren wasn't looking at him anymore. She was looking at Marlo, and her expression was shifting from fear to something else. Something calculating. The look of a child making a decision. She reached into her backpack and pulled out a small notebook. Spiral-bound the kind with a cartoon character on the cover. She walked to Marlo's desk and set it down with the careful precision of someone handling evidence. You need to see this, Wren said. Marlo opened the notebook. The first page showed a drawing, crude the work of an 8-year-old with limited art skills. But the image was clear enough. A stick figure with Caleb W. written underneath in careful block letters. A bathtub drawn next to it. And over the bathtub in red crayon, a large X. She turned the page. Another drawing. Another stick figure, this one with long hair. Emma R. written below. A set of stairs, another red X. Who are Caleb and Emma? Marlo asked, though something in her gut already knew the answer was going to be bad. Kids who lived with the Canes before us, Wren said. Her voice was steady, too steady for an 8-year-old. I found their names carved on the garage wall. When I asked Vanessa who they were, she got really scared. Like her face went white, and she grabbed my arm and told me never to ask about them again. So I knew something bad happened. Marlo turned another page. More drawings. A garage with 3 mattresses. A deadbolt drawn on the outside of a door. A bucket in the corner. The images matched everything Rowan had just described, but seeing them rendered in crayon drawn by a child's hand made them somehow worse. She kept turning pages, drawing after drawing, 47 in total, each one documenting some aspect of the Kane house. The real house, not the version they showed to investigators. And then near the end of the notebook, Wren had drawn something different. An insurance document. The details were crude but recognizable. A form with lines and boxes. And in the center, in Wren's careful printing, insured Rowan Cole, age 9, benefit $60,000. Marlo looked up sharply. Where did you see this? Victor's desk, Wren said. 3 weeks ago, the paper fell out of a folder when he was moving stuff around. I only saw it for a second before he shoved it back in, but I remembered. You drew this from memory. I draw everything from memory. Wren pointed at the notebook. I've been doing it for 3 months, since I found Caleb and Emma's names. I didn't know if anyone would believe us if we just talked. But pictures, she shrugged. Pictures are proof. Marlowe flipped to another page near the end. A calendar meticulously drawn. May was marked with dates, and one date was circled in red crayon with words written above it. Camping trip, just me and V and V. What's this? Marlowe asked, pointing at the circled date. May 23rd, Rowan said quietly. Next weekend. Victor told me last week. He said it's going to be a special trip, just us men, going up to the mountains, fishing and camping. His voice cracked. I thought maybe he was trying to be nice, that maybe things were getting better. Wren shook her head. She turned to another page in the notebook. Another drawing, this one showing a mountain with a cliff, a stick figure falling, the same red X. That's how Emma died, she said. I heard Vanessa and Victor talking about it one night. They didn't know I was awake. Vanessa said we should do it quick like Emma. And Victor said a fall is always believable. Kids are clumsy. The room had gone very cold despite the spring warmth outside. Marlowe looked at the insurance document drawing, looked at the calendar with its circled date, looked at the mountain cliff with the falling figure. They weren't planning to bring Rowan back from that camping trip. I need to make a phone call, Marlowe said. Her voice was steady. Everything about her was steady now. The decision had been made. Actually, it had been made 59 days ago when she'd first started counting. Everything since then had just been gathering evidence, building the case, waiting for the moment when she could act. This was the moment. Who are you calling? Rowan asked. Fear was back in his voice. Please don't call Victor and Vanessa. Please. I'm not calling them. Marlowe pulled out her phone. I'm calling my brother. She dialed a number she knew by heart. It rang once. Tyler, I need you to activate code Broken Wing. The man on the other end of the line didn't ask questions. 12 years as an EMT had taught him to hear urgency in someone's voice, to respond first and clarify later. How many? 3 kids. Rowan's 9, his sister Wren is 8, youngest brother Leo is 5. They've been locked in a garage for 7 months. Multiple instances of physical abuse, systematic starvation. 2 previous foster children in the same home are dead under suspicious circumstances. And Tyler, her voice dropped. They have an active life insurance policy on the oldest boy. They're planning to kill him next weekend. Silence on the other end. 1 second, 2. Then I'm calling Bishop. This is code Broken Wing, all parameters. Stay with those children. Don't let them out of your sight. I'll be there in 12 minutes. Tyler, Marlowe said, bring everyone. She hung up. Rowan was staring at her with wide eyes. What's code Broken Wing? Before Marlowe could answer, Wren spoke up. Who's your brother? Marlowe looked at both of them. 2 children who'd been failed by every adult system designed to protect them. A 9-year-old boy who'd worn a jacket for 59 days to hide the evidence of his torture. An 8-year-old girl who'd started documenting her own abuse in crayon because she understood with the terrible wisdom of a traumatized child that no one would believe her voice, but they might believe her pictures. His name is Barrett Quinn, Marlowe said. He's a member of a motorcycle club. They have a code Broken Wing. It means a child is in danger. When that code goes out, every member within 80 miles drops everything. Work, dinner, sleep. Doesn't matter. A child in danger overrides everything else. How many people are in this club? Wren asked. Marlowe looked out the window at the parking lot, already calculating how much space they'd need. In Colorado, within the 80-mile radius, she met Wren's eyes. 139. The sound started about 8 minutes later. At first, it was distant, a low rumble like thunder building on the horizon. But it grew, and grew, and grew until the windows of room 108 were vibrating in their frames, and the fluorescent lights were humming in sympathy, and the floor itself seemed to pulse with the rhythm of engines. Rowan walked to the window, pressed his forehead against the glass. His mouth fell open. Motorcycles, not 1, not 5, not 20. Dozens of them pouring into the Pinerest Elementary parking lot like a river of chrome and leather. They filled the main lot, spilled into the overflow area lined up along the school fence. An endless column of riders dismounting, removing helmets, standing in formation. The sound of their engines was so deep, so powerful that Rowan could feel it in his sternum. "How many?" he whispered. Marlowe stood beside him, watching as the last few bikes rolled in and took their positions. "All of them," she said. 139. The riders wore leather vests. Patches marked their membership, their chapters, their ranks. Big men, small men, old men with gray beards, and young men with tattoos snaking up their necks. Women, too, a dozen of them at least, standing shoulder to shoulder with their brothers. They moved with military precision, not chaos, not aggression, purpose. They were here for Rowan. They were here for Wren. They were here for Leo, who was still locked in a garage on Cedarbrook Lane with two people who had already murdered two children and were planning a third. The classroom door opened again. A man stepped inside, 35 maybe, lean build, the kind of fitness that came from actual work rather than gym routines. He wore the same leather vest as the others. His patch read Sergeant at Arms. His eyes swept the room, cataloging everything in a single glance, and then locked onto Rowan with an intensity that made the boy step back instinctively. But then the man dropped to one knee, made himself small, made himself less threatening. "Hey," he said, his voice was gentle. "I'm Barrett. Marlowe's my little sister." Rowan nodded, couldn't speak. "She told me you've been having a rough time." "That true?" Another nod. "Can I see?" Rowan looked at Marlowe. She nodded encouragement. Slowly, the boy pulled back his sleeve, showed the bruises to this stranger who'd appeared in his classroom, surrounded by 139 engines. Barrett's jaw tightened. A muscle jumped in his neck. His hands that had stabilized trauma victims, carried injured people out of wrecked cars, performed CPR on dying patients curled into fists at his sides. But his voice stayed soft. "You did good, Rowan. You did real good telling my sister. That was the bravest thing you've ever done. You know that. Are you going to help?" The words came out small, broken. "I'm going to do more than help." Barrett stood, pulled out his phone. "I'm going to make sure nobody hurts you or Wren or Leo ever again." He stepped into the hallway, phone already at his ear. Through the open door, they could hear his voice, clipped and professional. "Bishop, we have a situation. 3 minors, ages 9, 8, and 5. Active abuse case. 2 prior deaths in the same household ruled accidental, but showing indicators of homicide. Life insurance policies on deceased children. Active policy on current victim. Planned camping trip in 7 days that reads like a setup for murder 3. A pause, then copy that, all hands. Barrett returned to the classroom. Behind him, a second man appeared in the doorway. This one filled the frame. 61 years old, gray-brown beard, face carved by 30 years of grief and purpose. His leather vest bore the president's patch. He moved like a mountain, deciding to walk slow, deliberate, inevitable. The man's blue eyes found Rowan, and something in them softened. "Son," he said. His voice was quiet. Not soft, there was a difference. Soft was gentle. Quiet was controlled power with the volume turned low. "My name is Cormac Cross. Most people call me Bishop. I want to tell you a story. Can I do that?" Rowan nodded. Bishop pulled a chair over, sat down slowly. His knees popped. He smiled slightly at the sound. "Getting old, kid. Don't recommend it." The smile faded. 22 years ago, I had a son. His name was Danny. Brown hair, big laugh, loved baseball. He was 11 years old when his mother, my first wife, died. I was working construction at the time, long hours, couldn't take care of him alone. The state put him in foster care while I got my life together. He paused, let the words settle. The family they placed him with looked perfect on paper. Nice house, clean background checks, references from their church. They seemed like good people. Rowan's hands had started to shake again. Danny tried to tell people what was happening to him. Bishop continued. His voice was steady, but his hands gripped his knees hard enough that his knuckles went white. He told his teacher, told his caseworker, told a neighbor. You know what they all said? They didn't believe him, Rowan whispered. They didn't believe him. Bishop's eyes were wet now. He didn't try to hide it. They said he was acting out because of grief over his mother. They said he had attachment issues. They said troubled children sometimes fabricate stories for attention. The tears were falling freely down Rowan's face now. By the time I got the call, by the time I came home from a job site and found out what was really happening, it was too late. Danny was gone. The room was absolutely silent. I buried my son on a Tuesday, Bishop said, and on Wednesday I made a promise to Danny to God to myself. I promised that I would spend the rest of my life making sure no other kids suffered what he suffered. That I would build something, a brotherhood, a network, a wall of people who would show up when the system wouldn't. He leaned forward slightly. That's what Code Broken Wing is, Rowan. That's why there are 139 motorcycles in your school parking lot right now. Because every person out there carries Danny's name in their heart. And when the code goes out, when a child is in danger, nothing else matters. Not work, not sleep, not distance, nothing. Rowan was sobbing now, not the quiet tears from before, full body sobs that shook his thin frame. Your son died because nobody showed up, he managed to say between gasps. Yes, and now you show up for other kids. Every single time, without fail, without exception, for 22 years. Rowan looked at his bruised arms, looked at Bishop, looked at Barrett, looked at his teacher who'd counted 59 days and refused to look away. Victor told us nobody cares about foster kids, he said. He said we're disposable. He said the state pays him to keep us, and that's all we're worth, a check. Bishop's expression didn't change, but something behind his blue eyes caught fire. Victor is a liar's son, and tonight Victor is going to learn what happens when a liar meets 139 people who care more about the truth than anything else on this earth. The door opened again. A stocky man in wire-rimmed glasses stepped in, laptop under his arm. Bishop, I pulled the preliminary financials. The man pushed his glasses up his nose. 6 years of foster care payments. 14 different children cycled through that house, and a charity called Little Blessings that's bleeding money into personal accounts. He glanced at Rowan, then at Marlowe. Your instinct about the money was right, ma'am. These people aren't just abusing children. They built a business model around it. Another man appeared behind the accountant, tall, dark blonde hair, phone already in hand. Bishop, I'm pulling media coverage on the Canes. They ran a feature story last year about their charity work. Vanessa Kane spoke at a church fundraiser. Victor coaches Little League. He looked up from his phone. They're angels in this community. If they run their playbook, crying on camera, invoking their charity, playing the persecuted Christians, we need the counter-narrative lockdown before they get a microphone. Do it, Bishop said. But Echo, this is about evidence, not revenge. We document. We testify. We let the law do its job. We just make sure the law actually does it this time. Marlowe's phone buzzed. She read the text message and her face went white. What? Barrett asked. She showed him the screen. A message from the CPS hotline. Case assigned, investigator dispatched, estimated arrival 18 to 24 hours. Barrett showed it to Bishop. The old man read it, nodded once, then pulled out his own phone and typed a message. The sound of 139 phones buzzing simultaneously filled the parking lot outside. CPS says 24 hours, Bishop said. We say tonight. Nobody leaves until these children are out of that house. He looked at Rowan, who was still eating a granola bar that one of the riders had pulled from an emergency backpack. The boy was eating it, slowly breaking off small pieces and chewing each one completely before taking the next. Not because he wanted to savor it, because 7 months of starvation had taught him that if you eat too fast on an empty stomach, you cramp up and vomit and waste food you might not get again. Every adult in that room watched a 9-year-old boy eat a granola bar like it was the last food on earth, and every one of them made the same silent promise. Not one more night, not one more hour, not one more minute of this child's suffering. Tonight it ended. Rowan looked up from his granola bar crumbs on his chin, tears drying on his cheeks. Miss Quinn, yes, sweetheart. If your brother and his friends save us tonight, if we really don't have to go back, can I still come to school tomorrow? The question hit Marlowe like a physical blow. Of course you can. Why would you think otherwise? Because this classroom is the only place I've felt safe in 7 months. His voice cracked, and I don't want to lose it. Marlowe knelt beside him, took his hands gently in hers. Rowan Cole, you are coming to school tomorrow, and the day after that, and every day after that, and you are never, ever going to feel unsafe again. That is a promise from me, from Barrett, from Bishop, and from every single person in that parking lot. Rowan looked out the window at the sea of motorcycles, at the leather-clad figures standing shoulder to shoulder in the fading Colorado sunlight, at the chrome catching the last light of a day that had started like every other terrible day of his life, but was ending like nothing he had ever experienced. There's so many of them, he whispered. 139, Marlowe said, all for you. He pressed his forehead against the glass again. His breath fogged the window, and in the fog, without thinking about it, he drew a small heart with his finger. Then he whispered something so quiet that only Marlowe heard it. Maybe Victor was wrong. Maybe somebody does care about foster kids. Outside, 139 engines idled in unison, waiting, ready, patient, not leaving until 3 children walked out of a locked garage for the last time. And in room 108, a 9-year-old boy in a faded blue denim jacket finished his granola bar, leaned against his teacher's shoulder, and closed his eyes. For the first time in 7 months, he wasn't unafraid to fall asleep. The sound of a car pulling into the parking lot cut through the rumble of idling motorcycles. Barrett's phone buzzed. He read the text, read it again, then held it up so Bishop could see. Bishop's face went hard. What is it? Marlowe asked. Vanessa Kane just called the school office. Bishop's voice was controlled, flat, the kind of flat that meant he was holding something back. She's on her way to pick up Rowan. Says she got a call from the front desk that he was kept after class for a disciplinary issue. Marlowe stood fast. I didn't authorize any call. Nobody in this building was supposed to contact them. Barrett was already moving toward the door. Who made that call? Bishop held up one hand. Echo, find out who in this school contacted the Canes, now. The journalist disappeared down the hallway at a near run. Rowan had gone rigid, every muscle in his small body locked tight. The granola bar dropped from his hand, hit the floor, and he didn't notice. His eyes were fixed on the classroom door like it was about to burst open and swallow him whole. She's coming, he whispered. She's coming here. She'll know, I told. She'll know. Marlowe dropped to her knees in front of him. Rowan, look at me. Look at my eyes. The boy's gaze was distant, unfocused. He was somewhere else, somewhere dark. Nobody is taking you out of this room, Marlowe said. Each word deliberate, firm. Do you understand me? Nobody. You don't know Vanessa. His breathing was coming faster now, shallow, the beginning of panic. She's good at this. She cries and she smiles and she makes everyone believe her. She'll walk in here and she'll say, I'm a liar, and everyone will believe her because that's what always happens. Not today, Bishop said. His voice cut through the panic like a blade. Not with 139 witnesses standing between her and this door. Barrett pulled out his phone. I need 8 brothers at the main entrance. Now, nobody enters this school without my authorization. A response came back in seconds. How far out is Vanessa Kane? Barrett looked at his phone, tracking software that one of the tech-savvy members had pulled up using the school's security cameras. 12 minutes, he said. 12 minutes. Bishop turned to Marlowe. We need to lock this down before she arrives. Is there another adult in this building you trust completely? Someone who will stand with you and not fold under pressure. Carol, Marlowe said immediately. Carol Jennings, the school nurse. She documented everything. Get her back in here. Carol appeared 2 minutes later, reading glasses perched on her nose, medical folder clutched against her chest. She took one look at the room full of bikers and didn't even blink. Marlowe filled me in, she said. What do you need? Bishop gave her a 30-second briefing. Carol's face went cold. Let her come. I've got photographs of bruises on this child that match an adult male's handprint. I've got his weight on record. I've got clinical documentation that would hold up in any courtroom in Colorado. She looked at Rowan with fierce protectiveness. Vanessa Kane can cry all she wants. Tears don't erase evidence. Echo burst back through the door, breathing hard. Found it. Vice principal guy named Harold Patterson. Vanessa Kane is on his emergency contact list. The system auto-notified her when Rowan was flagged as staying after school past the normal pickup window. Patterson didn't override it. Did he know about the report? Bishop asked. Says he didn't check his email. Says he was in a meeting. Barrett swore under his breath. A meeting, a child's mandatory abuse report sitting in his inbox, and he was in a meeting. It gets worse, Echo said. Patterson and Victor Kane serve on the same church board at Grace Community. They play golf together monthly. The room went dead silent. Marlowe's hands curled into fists. Harold Patterson has been at this school for 9 years. He's had access to Rowan's file. He's seen the attendance records, the weight loss, the behavioral flags. Her voice shook with rage. And he's golfing buddies with the man who beats this child. Did Patterson know what was happening? Barrett asked. That's what we're going to find out, Bishop said. But not right now. Right now, Vanessa Kane is 8 minutes away, and we need to be ready. Rowan had pulled his knees to his chest, wrapped his arms around them. He was rocking slightly, a self-soothing behavior that Carol recognized immediately from years of working with traumatized children. Bishop didn't crouch this time. He stayed standing. Let his full height fill the space. Let the boy see exactly how big the wall between him and danger was. Rowan, he said, I need you to hear something and I need you to believe it. The boy looked up. His eyes were red-rimmed, terrified. Vanessa Kane is going to walk into this school and she is going to put on a performance. She will cry. She will use her church voice. She will call you troubled and difficult and confused. She will try to make every adult in this building feel sorry for her. He paused. That is her weapon. It has worked on caseworkers. It has worked on principals. It has worked on an entire congregation. Another pause, letting it sink in. It will not work on me. It will not work on your teacher. It will not work on any of the 139 people standing between her and this room. Because we've seen this performance before, Rowan. We've seen it from every abuser who ever wore nice clothes and smiled for cameras. And we know exactly what's hiding underneath. What if she takes me? Rowan's voice was barely audible. She won't. But what if she won't? Barrett's phone buzzes. She's pulling into the parking lot. Bishop straightened his vest. Good. Let her see the bikes. Let her count them. Let her understand exactly what she's walking into. What Vanessa Kane saw when she turned onto Pinehurst Elementary's access road stopped her SUV dead in the middle of the street. Motorcycles everywhere, filling every parking space, lining both sides of the road, stretching around the school fence like an iron perimeter, and men leather-vested arms crossed stone-faced men standing on the sidewalks on the grass along the school entrance, silent, watching. She sat in her car for a full minute. The bikers on the ground reported she was on her phone, calling Victor most likely, or their lawyer or their pastor, running through the Rolodex of people who had always protected them before. Then she got out. She was wearing exactly what everyone expected. Floral blouse, cardigan pearl earrings, hair done, makeup fresh. The costume of a concerned, respectable foster mother rushing to pick up her child from school. She clutched her purse with both hands and walked toward the entrance with her chin up and her eyes wide with practiced worry. 8 Hell's Angels stood at the main doors. They didn't block her path, didn't speak, just watched as she walked between them, heels clicking on concrete, and disappeared inside. Barrett was waiting in the hallway outside room 108. Vanessa stopped when she saw him, saw the leather vest, saw the patches, saw the military bearing. Her smile flickered for a fraction of a second before she locked it back in place. "I'm here to pick up my foster son, Rowan Cole," she said. Her voice had that trembling quality that suggested she was barely holding back tears. "I was told he was kept after class. Rowan is with his teacher and the school nurse," Barrett said. His voice was neutral, professional. "He's safe." "Safe?" Vanessa's voice pitched higher, the performance beginning. "Of course he's safe. He's always safe. I don't understand what's happening. There are motorcycles all over the parking lot. I'm frightened. Can someone please tell me what's going on?" "Child Protective Services has been notified," Barrett said. "A mandatory report has been filed. Rowan will remain in school custody until the investigation is resolved." Vanessa's eyes hardened. Just for 1 second. 1 second of the real Vanessa, the calculating, controlling woman who locked children in a garage and spent their support money on kitchen renovations. Then the mask slammed back down. "This is a misunderstanding." Tears started flowing, right on cue. "Rowan has behavioral issues. He's been diagnosed with attachment disorder. He makes up stories for attention. I can show you his file. Our caseworker, our pastor, our therapist, they'll all tell you the same thing." "Ma'am," Barrett said, "the school nurse has documented injuries on Rowan that are inconsistent with any behavioral explanation. Fingerprint bruising, belt marks, chronic malnutrition. He weighs 52 pounds. Vanessa's lip trembled. Her eyes filled with more tears. "I love that boy." The words came out broken, anguished. "I love all three of those children. We took them in when nobody else would. Do you know how hard it is to foster children with trauma? They hurt themselves. They lie. They test boundaries." She took a step forward. "And now because of one teacher who doesn't understand trauma behaviors, I'm being treated like a criminal." Barrett didn't blink. "Ma'am, I have a question. If Rowan's injuries are self-inflicted, why are the bruises shaped like adult fingerprints?" The tears stopped, just for a moment, just long enough for the calculation to show. "I want to see my son," she said. "He's not your son, Mrs. Kane. He's a foster child in your care. And right now, that care is under investigation." "I have rights. I'm his legal guardian." "And he has rights too," a new voice said, "including the right to be safe." Bishop appeared in the classroom doorway behind Barrett. 61 years old, 240 pounds, the president patch, catching the hallway fluorescent light. Vanessa took an involuntary step back. "Mrs. Kane," Bishop said. His voice was the quietest sound in the building and somehow the loudest. "I'm going to recommend you go home and wait for CPS to contact you. You can bring your lawyer. You can bring your pastor. You can bring whoever makes you feel comfortable." He took one step into the hallway, just one step. That was all it took. "But you are not entering this classroom, and you are not leaving this building with that child." "Who are you?" Vanessa's composure was cracking. "You can't keep me from my foster children." "I'm a father who buried his son because people like you convinced the system he was lying." Bishop's voice didn't rise, didn't need to. "And I've spent 22 years making sure it doesn't happen again." He took another step. "Go home, Mrs. Kane. Call your husband. Call your lawyer, because by tomorrow morning you are going to need one." Vanessa Kane looked at Bishop, at Barrett, at the 8 men visible through the glass entrance doors, at the sea of chrome beyond them. And for the first time in 6 years of manipulation and charm and carefully performed motherhood, she had no play, no angle, no audience willing to believe her. Her face changed. The mask didn't just crack, it shattered. Pure, undiluted rage flashed across her features like lightning before she caught it and stuffed it back down. "You'll be hearing from our attorney," she said. "We look forward to it," Bishop replied. She turned and walked back down the hallway. Her heels echoed. Every Hell's Angel member she passed watched her go in silence. She pushed through the entrance doors, crossed the parking lot, 139 pairs of eyes tracking every step, got into her SUV, and sat there for 3 minutes before starting the engine. Barrett waited until her taillights disappeared around the corner. Then he pulled out his phone. She's gone, but she's not going home. She's going to destroy evidence. Somebody needs to be at that house before she gets there. Bishop was already dialing. Brothers at Cedarbrook Lane. Vanessa Kane left the school 2 minutes ago. She's heading your way. Eyes on the house. If anything goes into a trash can, a car trunk, or a fire pit, I want it documented. The response came back in 15 seconds. Copy, Bishop. We've got the house covered. Nothing moves without us seeing it. Back in room 108, Rowan was still curled in his chair. He'd heard everything through the door, every word. His face was wet, but his eyes were focused. She used her church voice, he said quietly. She did, Marlowe confirmed. That's the one she uses on caseworkers, on Pastor Davis, on the neighbors. She cries, and everybody says, poor Vanessa, those difficult foster children. She's such a saint for taking them in. It didn't work this time, buddy, Barrett said, pulling up a chair beside him. Why not? Barrett leaned back. Because the people she usually performs for want to believe her. It's easier. If Vanessa's a good person, then nobody has to feel guilty for not noticing what's happening to you. Nobody has to get involved. Nobody has to do anything uncomfortable. He looked at Rowan directly. We don't want easy, Rowan. We want the truth. And the truth is written all over your arms. The sound of another vehicle pulling up made everyone tense. But this time it was official. A CPS vehicle with government plates. Investigator Brennan stepped out. 42 years old, 14 years with the department, carrying a tablet and the weight of every case she'd ever worked. She walked through the gauntlet of motorcycles with her head high and her jaw set. When she reached the entrance, Barrett met her at the door. Investigator Brennan. That's me. Who are you? Barrett Quinn. The reporting teacher is my sister. I'll walk you to room 108. Brennan followed him down the hallway. When she walked into the classroom, she expected what she usually found. A panicked teacher, a confused child, in a situation that would take 30 minutes to sort out and probably result in a follow-up visit scheduled for next week. Instead, she found a school nurse with a clinical evidence folder thick enough to choke on. A teacher with 2 months of handwritten daily observations. A man in wire-rimmed glasses sitting at a laptop with financial spreadsheets covering the screen. A former journalist with recorded witness statements queued up on his phone. And a 61-year-old biker club president who shook her hand like they were at a board meeting and said, Investigator Brennan, thank you for expediting. We have everything organized for your review. Where would you like to start? Brennan stared at him. This is the most unusual mandatory report response I've ever seen. The usual response failed this child 3 times, Bishop said. We decided an unusual was necessary. Show me the medical evidence first. Carol handed her the folder. Brennan opened it, looked at the photographs, looked at the measurements, looked at the weight documentation. Her jaw tightened with every page. Where's the child? Marlowe stepped aside. Rowan was sitting at his desk, arms wrapped around his knees, watching this new adult with the careful attention of someone who'd learned that adults determine whether you lived or died. Brennan approached slowly. Everything in her training said, go gentle, go slow, don't spook the traumatized child. Rowan, she said, I am Investigator Brennan. I work for Child Protective Services. Rowan looked at her, then at Marlowe, then back at Brennan. The last person from your office came to our house 3 weeks ago, he said. His voice was flat, factual. She talked to Vanessa for 20 minutes in the kitchen while we sat in the living room in nice clothes. She never asked us anything without Vanessa standing right there. She left and nothing changed. Brennan flinched like she'd been slapped. I know, she said quietly. I read the file on my way here. That's not how it should have been handled. Are you going to do it different? The question was precise. Clinical. This 9-year-old boy had been failed enough times to know that promises from adults in official positions meant nothing without specifics. Yes, Brennan said. How? The question caught her off guard, not because it was rude, because it was smart. I'm going to interview you privately, she said, without any foster parent present. I'm going to interview Ren and Leo the same way. I'm going to inspect the actual living conditions in that house, not the staged bedrooms, the real ones. And if what I find matches what's in this medical report, I'm filing for emergency removal tonight. Not tomorrow, not next week. Tonight. Rowan studied her face, looking for the tell, the flinch, the moment where the nice words dissolved into excuses. He didn't find one. Okay, he said finally, but I'm telling you now, the garage is bad. Ren has bruises on her legs that she hides. And Leo stopped talking 2 months ago. He used to talk all the time, and now he barely says a word. If you go to that house and you see those kids and you leave them there, I will never trust another adult as long as I live. The words hit Brennan like a freight train. She'd heard thousands of children make statements during her career. She had never been spoken to like this by a 9-year-old. Not with anger, not with pleading, with calm, exhausted certainty that said, I have been let down by every system designed to protect me, and you are my last chance. I hear you, Rowan, she said. I hear you. She turned to Bishop. I need to get to that house, now. We'll escort you, Bishop said. That's not standard protocol. Neither is locking children in a garage, Investigator Brennan. We're not going to interfere with your investigation. We're going to stand on public property and make sure nothing disappears before you get inside. Brennan's phone buzzed. She read the message and her face changed. Victor Kane is at the house right now. My colleagues on the ground report he's been loading bags into his car for the last 10 minutes. He's running, Barrett said, or destroying evidence. Either way, we need to move, Bishop said. Brennan grabbed her tablet. Let's go. As they headed for the door, Rowan called out, Investigator Brennan? She turned. Ren and Leo are still in that house right now. With Victor. Please don't leave them there. I won't, Brennan said. I promise you, Rowan, I won't. The convoy formed up in the parking lot. Brennan's CPS vehicle in front, Detective Keller from the fraud unit behind her, and 15 Hells Angels motorcycles creating a protective perimeter around both official vehicles. As they pulled out onto the main road, their engines synced into a single thunderous roar that echoed off the buildings and sent a message to anyone within earshot. Code Broken Wing was in motion. And nothing, not Victor Kane, not Vanessa Kane, not a system that had failed these children 3 times already, was going to stop them. The call came through Barrett's phone at exactly 4:47 p.m. Barrett, we have a problem. The voice belonged to Dustin Hammer Wallace, one of the brothers stationed outside the Kane house on Cedarbrook Lane. Former construction foreman, now retired, spent his days riding and his nights making sure Code Broken Wing stayed ready for moments exactly like this. Talk to me, Barrett said. He had the phone on speaker. Bishop leaned in close enough to hear. Victor Kane just put 2 kids in his car. Girl looks about 8, boy maybe 5. He's backing out of the driveway right now. Moving fast. Everything accelerated. Bishop's voice went from boardroom to battlefield in half a second. Which direction? East on Cedarbrook toward Route 36. How many brothers on site? 15 bikes plus me and Torch on the ground. Keep eyes on that vehicle. Do not lose it. Do not approach. Call 911 and report 2 minor children being transported by a suspect under active CPS investigation. Bishop turned to Brennan, who was already pulling her CPS vehicle into traffic. Investigator, you need to call the police. Victor Kane is fleeing with 2 of the 3 children. Brennan was dialing before he finished the sentence. This is Investigator Brennan, CPS badge number 472. I need patrol units to intercept a vehicle heading east on Cedarbrook Lane toward Route 36. Gray Chevy Tahoe, Colorado plates. She read off the number that Hammer had texted. Male driver, 2 minor children in the vehicle. Children are subjects of an active emergency removal investigation. Consider this a flight risk situation. She hung up and looked at Bishop. If he gets on the highway with those kids, he won't, Barrett said. His phone was already connecting to the broader network. I have 15 brothers behind him and 20 more between him and the I-25 on-ramp. He's boxed. Your people cannot stop that vehicle, Brennan said sharply. That's vigilantism. They're not going to stop it, Barrett said. They're going to follow it, loudly in formation. Have you ever tried to run from 15 Harleys at night? Investigator, you can't hear yourself think. You can't focus. You make mistakes. And when the police arrive, we'll be able to tell them exactly where he is. Back at the school, Rowan was standing at the window. Marlowe had tried to get him to sit to rest, but he couldn't. His body was vibrating with tension, every muscle coiled tight. He took them, Rowan said. His voice was hollow. He took Ren and Leo. The brothers are following them, Marlowe said. She kept her hand on his shoulder, grounding him. They're not going to lose sight of them. You don't understand. Rowan turned to face her. His eyes were two wide pupils dilated with fear. Victor told us once, last winter when Leo asked what would happen if someone tried to take us away. Victor said he'd drive to the mountains and nobody would ever find us. He said there are places up there where people disappear. Marlowe's blood ran cold. Barrett needs to know that right now. She grabbed her phone, dialed her brother. He answered on the first ring. Barrett, Rowan says Victor threatened to drive to the mountains and disappear with the kids if anyone tried to take them. He's not going to pull over. Barrett relayed this to Bishop, who relayed it to the police dispatcher, who sent the information to the patrol units en route. The chase was happening in real time across multiple phone lines, multiple vehicles, a coordinated response that was part law enforcement, part brotherhood, and entirely focused on two children in the backseat of a gray Tahoe doing 70 in a 45. Hammer's voice came through the speakers, breathless from riding. He just turned north on Wadsworth, still accelerating, doing 60 now in a 45 zone. Another voice, this one belonging to Marcus Torch Chen. Police units approaching from the south. Two cruisers, lights and sirens. Victor spotted the cruisers, Hammer reported. He's accelerating again. 70 now, Route 36 coming up. In the back seat of Victor Kane's Tahoe, Ren Cole held her 5-year-old brother Leo against her chest and tried not to scream. Victor was driving like a maniac, swerving between lanes, running red lights, the engine roaring as he pushed the accelerator to the floor. His phone was pressed to his ear and he was screaming at someone. Ren couldn't make out all the words over the road noise and her own hammering heartbeat, but she caught fragments. They know everything. Tonight, we need to leave. Leo was crying, not loudly. He'd learned months ago that loud crying made Victor angry, but silent tears were streaming down his face and his small body was shaking in Ren's arms. It's okay, Ren whispered into his hair. It's okay, Leo. Rowan got help. Remember what I told you, Rowan got help, and they're coming for us. But she didn't know if that was true anymore. All she knew was that Victor was driving them away from Rowan, away from the school, away from whatever safety her brother had managed to find. And the mountains were ahead, dark shapes against the darkening sky, and Victor had told them stories about those mountains, about the old mine shafts, about the cliffs where hikers fell and weren't found for months, about Caleb who'd gone camping and drowned, about Emma who'd gone hiking and fallen. The Tahoe merged onto Route 36 westbound. Victor was doing 75 now, 80. The speedometer needle climbing. Behind them, 15 motorcycles maintained pursuit, not closing the distance, not engaging, just following their headlights, creating a river of light in Victor's rearview mirror that he couldn't escape no matter how fast he drove. And ahead at the Broomfield exit, 2 more patrol cars were taking position. At the school, Rowan was listening to the updates coming through Marlowe's phone on speaker. Each new piece of information felt like a punch to his gut. He's on Route 36 westbound, doing 80. Kids visible in back seat. Girl is holding the boy. That last one broke something in Rowan. because he knew exactly what that meant. Wren was doing what she always did when things got bad. She was protecting Leo, holding him close, singing to him probably, or whispering the stories Rowan had made up during those long nights in the garage. Stories about bears who lived in warm caves and had all the honey they could eat and were never, ever afraid. I should be there, Rowan said. His hands were clenched into fists so tight his nails were cutting into his palms. I should be with them. I always protect them. You did protect them, Bishop said quietly. He'd stayed at the school with Rowan while Barrett went with the convoy. You told Miss Quinn, you showed her the bruises. You started all of this. Your brother and sister are alive right now because of what you did. But they're scared. Yes, but they're not alone. There are 15 riders behind that car, 2 police units ahead of it. Detective Keller is coordinating with Highway Patrol, and he checked his phone 3 minutes, Victor Kane is going to realize he has nowhere to run. The update came at 4:53 p.m. He's slowing down, Hammer reported, taking the Broomfield exit. Wait, he's pulling into a gas station. Engine's still running, but he's stopped. Why? Bishop asked into the phone. Don't know. He's just sitting there, on his phone again. Kids are still in the back seat. Police ETA. 2 minutes. Those 2 minutes felt like hours. In the Tahoe, Victor was screaming into his phone now. Wren could hear Vanessa's voice on the other end, high, and panic, the words tumbling over each other. The school, bikers everywhere. They know. Lawyer said, we need to leave tonight. Victor's hands slammed against the steering wheel. Where do we go? They've got people watching the house. They're following me right now. He looked in the rearview mirror. 15 motorcycles had pulled into the gas station parking lot behind him. Not approaching, not threatening, just there. Engines rumbling, riders standing beside their bikes, watching, waiting. Victor's face in the mirror was the color of old paper. Sweat beaded on his forehead. His hands shook on the steering wheel, and then the police arrived. 2 cruisers pulled into the gas station from opposite directions, boxing the Tahoe in. Officers emerged, hands on weapons, approaching with the careful precision of people who had been briefed that there were children in the vehicle. The lead officer approached the driver's side window. Sir, I need you to turn off the engine and show me your hands. Victor's hands came up slowly, visible, shaking. Officer, this is a misunderstanding. These are my foster children. I was just taking them for ice cream and, sir, turn off the engine now. The engine died. Step out of the vehicle. Victor opened the door, stepped out. The officer immediately moved him away from the Tahoe, hands on his shoulders, guiding him to the front of the police cruiser. The second officer approached the back door. Through the window, he could see them. Wren, 8 years old, arms wrapped around Leo, 5 years old. Both children were crying now. Wren's face was pressed against Leo's hair, and her lips were moving, singing something or praying. The officer couldn't tell which. He opened the door slowly, carefully. Hey there, he said. His voice was gentle, practiced. The voice cops use when they're trying not to scare traumatized children. I'm Officer Morrison. Are you two okay? Wren looked up at him. Her eyes were red, her face streaked with tears, but her voice when she spoke was steady. Is our brother Rowan safe? The question caught Morrison off guard. Your brother. Rowan Cole, he's 9. He was at school. Is he safe? Morrison pulled out his radio. Dispatch, the 2 minors in custody are asking about a 3rd child, Rowan Cole, age 9. Can you confirm his location? The response came back in seconds. Rowan Cole is secure at Pinterest Elementary with CPS and multiple witnesses. He's safe. Morrison turned back to Wren. Your brother's at the school. He's safe. The relief that washed over Wren's face was so profound it made Morrison's chest ache. She sagged against the seat, still holding Leo, and whispered something that sounded like, thank you. Sweetheart, Morrison said, I need to ask you something. Are you hurt? Is your brother hurt? Wren shook her head. Not today, but Victor was taking us away. He said, her voice cracked. He said we were going to the mountains. That's where the other kids died. Morrison went very still. What other kids? Caleb and Emma. They died in accidents, but they weren't accidents. Caleb drowned and Emma fell, but Victor and Vanessa killed them, and we were supposed to be next. The words came out in a rush like she'd been holding them back for months, and now that someone was finally listening, she couldn't stop them. Victor has insurance on Rowan, $60,000. They were going to take him camping next week, and he was going to have an accident, like Caleb and Emma. And then they'd get the money, and then they'd do it to me, and then Leo and... Okay, Morrison said softly. Okay, sweetheart. I need you to take a breath for me. Can you do that? Wren tried. Her breathing was hitching halfway to hyperventilating. My brother, she managed. I need to talk to my brother. Please, Leo needs to hear his voice. Morrison pulled out his phone, made a call to dispatch. 2 minutes later, his phone rang. I've got Rowan Cole on the line, the dispatcher said. Morrison held the phone where Wren could see it. You want to talk to him? Wren nodded so hard her whole body moved. Morrison put the phone on speaker and held it close to her. Rowan's voice came through the speaker rough and scared and so achingly familiar that Wren started sobbing. Rowan, oh God, Rowan, are you okay? Is Leo okay? Did Victor hurt you? We're okay, the police stopped him. We're at a gas station. There are motorcycles everywhere, and Rowan, are you really safe? I'm at school with Miss Quinn. There are people here, Wren, good people. They came to help us, all of us. How many people? Rowan's voice held something that might have been wonder. 139. Wren didn't understand, couldn't process that number. But she heard something in her brother's voice she hadn't heard in 7 months. Hope. Leo won't stop shaking, she said. Can you do the song, put the phone near him? Wren held the phone close to Leo's ear. The boy's face was buried against her shoulder, his small hands gripping her shirt so tight his knuckles were white. And through the phone speaker, quiet but clear, came Rowan's voice. Humming. The melody was simple, improvised. The song Rowan had made up during their first week in the garage, when Leo wouldn't stop crying, and Rowan had nothing to offer except his own voice. A song about a bear who lived in a warm cave and had all the honey he could eat and was never, ever afraid. He'd hummed it every night since then, in the dark, in the cold, when Leo had nightmares or when the hunger pains got too bad, or when Victor's footsteps came down the stairs and they all knew what was coming. The bear song meant safety. It meant Rowan was there. It meant they were together. Leo's breathing started to slow, just slightly, just enough. When the humming stopped, there was silence on the line for a moment. Then Leo's voice so quiet it was almost inaudible. Bear. It was the first word he'd spoken in 4 hours. The first word he'd spoken to anyone except Wren in weeks. Officer Morrison looked at the phone, then at the 2 children in the back seat, then at his partner, who was putting Victor Kane in handcuffs 20 feet away. He'd been a cop for 16 years. He'd seen a lot of bad things, a lot of hurt children. But something about this moment, about a 9-year-old boy humming a made-up lullaby through a phone speaker to comfort his terrified 5-year-old brother, while their abuser was being arrested in a gas station parking lot surrounded by bikers. It broke something in him that had been holding together through sheer professionalism. Rowan, he said into the phone, this is Officer Morrison. Your brother and sister are safe. We've got them. Victor Kane is in custody. You understand what I'm saying? They're safe. Thank you. Rowan's voice cracked. Thank you. Can they come back to the school? Can I see them? Morrison looked at Wren. She was nodding frantically. We'll bring them, Morrison said. Give us 30 minutes. He ended the call and looked at the 2 children. Come on, he said. Let's get you back to your brother. While the police were securing Wren and Leo, Investigator Brennan and Detective Keller had arrived at the Kane house on Cedar Brook Lane. The house looked perfect from the outside. Colonial-style, well-maintained lawn flowers in the planters. An American flag hung from the porch. A wooden sign by the door read, Bless this home. 15 Hells Angels stood on the sidewalk across the street. Public property, not interfering, just watching. Brennan walked up the front steps and knocked. No answer. She knocked again, louder. Still nothing. Mrs. Kane, this is Investigator Brennan with Child Protective Services. I need you to open the door. Silence. Detective Keller stepped forward. Mrs. Kane, this is the police. We have a warrant for inspection of the premises. If you don't open this door, in the next 30 seconds, we're coming in. 20 seconds later, the lock clicked. Vanessa Kane opened the door. She changed clothes since leaving the school. Now she wore jeans and a t-shirt. Her hair was pulled back. Her makeup was gone. She looked smaller somehow, less put together, and her eyes were red from crying. This is harassment, she said. Her voice was hoarse. We're good people. We help children. We're Christians. This is persecution. Step aside, please, Brennan said. Vanessa didn't move. Do you have a warrant? Detective Keller held up the paperwork. Emergency removal investigation. We have legal authority to inspect the living conditions of minor children in your care. Step aside or you'll be arrested for obstruction. Vanessa stepped back. They entered the house. The interior matched the exterior. Clean, well-decorated, family photos on the walls. A cross-stitch sampler that read, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." The kitchen was spotless. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, fresh flowers in a vase on the table. Where are the children's bedrooms? Brennan asked. Upstairs, Vanessa said. Second door on the right. They went upstairs, found the bedroom. It was perfect. 2 twin beds with matching quilts, posters on the walls, a shelf full of books and toys, everything a foster child could need. Everything a caseworker would look for during an inspection. Brennan pulled out her phone and looked at the photos Carol had sent. Photos of bruises, photos of malnutrition, photos of a child who weighed 52 pounds at age 9. This bedroom didn't match those photos. This is where the children sleep, she asked. Yes, Vanessa said. All 3 of them. Rowan has his own room down the hall. Show me. The second bedroom was equally perfect. Single bed, desk, bookshelf, a poster of the solar system on the wall. Brennan looked at Detective Keller. He was thinking the same thing she was. These rooms were staged. Where do they actually sleep, Mrs. Kane? I just showed you. No, Brennan said. Her voice was ice now. Where do they actually sleep? Not where you told the last investigator they sleep. Where they really sleep. Vanessa's jaw tightened. I don't know what you're implying. I'm implying that these rooms look like they've never been used. There's dust on that bookshelf. The bed in Rowan's room doesn't have sheets. It's a display, Mrs. Kane, so I'll ask you one more time. Where do the children sleep? Those are their rooms. Detective Keller stepped forward. Mrs. Kane, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. The easy way you show us. The hard way we search every inch of this house, and when we find what we're looking for, we add obstruction charges to everything else you're facing. Vanessa stared at him, at Brennan. Her face was pale, her hands shaking. I want my lawyer, she said. That's fine. You can call them from the station after we finish here. Keller turned to Brennan. Let's search the house. They went through it systematically. Living room, dining room, kitchen, basement. Nothing out of the ordinary. Nothing that matched Rowan's description of where they actually lived. And then Brennan noticed the door. It was at the back of the kitchen next to the pantry. Plain white door with a simple knob. Most people would assume it was a closet, but there was a deadbolt on the outside. Brennan felt her stomach drop. What's through this door? The garage, Vanessa said. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Open it. I don't have the key. Mrs. Kane, open this door right now or I will have the officers break it down. Vanessa's hands were shaking so badly she could barely work the deadbolt. It took her 3 tries to slide it open. When she finally got it, she stepped back. Brennan pushed the door open. The garage was exactly as Rowan had described it. Concrete floor, no insulation. Three thin mattresses arranged in a row against the far wall. No sheets, no blankets. Just bare-stained mattresses that looked like they'd been pulled from a dumpster. A bucket in the corner, a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, and on the wall, written in pencil, carved into the drywall in some places, names Caleb W. 2020, Emma R. 2022, Miranda H. 2019, and 7 others going back to 2018. Brennan pulled out her phone and started photographing. Every angle, every detail, the deadbolt, the mattresses, the bucket, the names on the wall. Behind her, Vanessa had started crying. We were going to fix it up. We just hadn't gotten around to it yet. The kids didn't mind. They actually preferred sleeping together. Stop talking, Detective Keller said. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court. I strongly suggest you wait for your lawyer. But Vanessa couldn't stop. The words were pouring out now, a panicked stream of excuses and rationalizations. They're difficult children, traumatized. They need structure. We were helping them. We took them in when nobody else would. Do you know how hard it is to foster children with their issues? Brennan turned from photographing the names on the wall. Mrs. Kane, there are 9 names on this wall. 9 children. Where are they? I don't know what you're talking about. Caleb Whitmore. Emma Reeves. Where are they? Vanessa's face crumpled. Those were accidents. Terrible accidents. We mourn them. They died in your care and you collected life insurance payouts both times. We didn't. Detective Keller's phone rang. He stepped outside to answer. It came back 60 seconds later. Brennan, we have a problem. My team just pulled the insurance records. There's an active policy on Rowan Cole, $60,000, purchased 6 weeks ago. Effective date is tomorrow. The day before the camping trip. The pieces were falling into place now. Not just abuse, not just neglect. Murder. Premeditated, calculated murder for profit. Caleb had drowned. Insurance payout, $75,000. Emma had fallen. Insurance payout, $120,000. Rowan was supposed to have an accident during a camping trip. Payout, $60,000. And after Rowan, there would be Ren, then Leo, each one bringing in years of foster care payments before their usefulness expired and they were replaced. It was a business model, children as inventory, death as profit. Brennan felt sick. Mrs. Kane, she said quietly, you're under arrest for child endangerment fraud and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. No. Vanessa's voice was sharp now. All the tears had stopped. What replaced them was something cold. No, you don't understand. This was Victor's idea, all of it. I'm a victim here. He manipulated me. Ma'am, Keller said, stop talking. But Vanessa kept going, the words tumbling out faster now, desperate. I can help you. I can tell you everything about the other children, about Caleb and Emma, about how Victor planned it. I can be a witness. We have a witness, Brennan said. We have 3 of them. Rowan, Ren, and Leo are alive and they're talking. And unlike you, we believe them. Vanessa's face went white. Keller pulled out handcuffs. Turn around. Wait, please. I have information. I can turn around. The cuffs clicked into place. As Keller led Vanessa out through the kitchen, past the perfect countertops and the flowers in the vase, and the cross-stitch sampler about serving, the Lord Brennan stood in the garage and stared at the names on the wall. 9 children. 9 names carved into drywall by children who knew no one was listening, no one was looking, no one was counting the days until they disappeared. Except someone had been counting. A teacher named Marlo Quinn had counted to 59, and a 9-year-old boy named Rowan Cole had survived long enough to tell the truth. And now finally someone was listening. Brennan pulled out her phone and called her supervisor. I need emergency removal orders for 3 minors, and I need you to reopen 2 suspicious death cases from 2020 and 2022. We have evidence of homicide. Outside, the 15 Hells Angels were still standing on the sidewalk. They'd watched Vanessa get put in the police cruiser, watched her get driven away, and now they watched as Brennan and Keller carried evidence bags out of the house. Photographs, documents, the thin mattresses that 3 children had slept on for 7 months, and a small box that Keller had found behind the water heater. Inside the box were trophies. Caleb's stuffed rabbit, the one with his name stitched on the tag. Emma's bracelet with the letter E, school photos of both children, and journals, small notebooks where Caleb had written, "I'm scared," in a 7-year-old's handwriting 3 days before he died. Where Emma had drawn pictures of a woman with a belt and a man with angry eyes. Evidence that Victor and Vanessa Kane had kept trophies from their victims. Evidence that would turn this from a child abuse case into a murder investigation. One of the bikers, an older man with a gray beard and kind eyes, approached Brennan as she loaded the evidence into her car. "Investigator," he said, his voice was respectful. "Those 3 kids, where are they going tonight?" "Emergency foster placement. We have a family standing by. Mark and Susan Brady. They're good people. We'd like to post watch outside their house, if that's all right with you." Brennan looked at this man, at the 14 others standing behind him, at the motorcycles lined up along the street. "For how long?" "Until Victor and Vanessa Kane are behind bars and those kids feel safe, however long that takes." "That's not standard procedure." "No, ma'am, but nothing about tonight has been standard procedure." Brennan thought about Rowan's face when he'd asked if she was going to do things differently. Thought about Wren holding Leo in the back of Victor's car. Thought about 9 names on a garage wall. "Public property only," she said. "No contact with the family. No interference with the investigation." "Yes, ma'am. And if I find out you're intimidating witnesses or..." "Investigator," the man's voice was gentle but firm, "we're not here to intimidate anyone. We're here to make sure 3 children sleep safely tonight. That's all." Brennan nodded, got in her car, drove away. Behind her, the 15 motorcycles started their engines in unison. They would follow her to the Brady house, would take up positions on the street outside, would watch through the night while 3 children who'd spent 7 months locked in a garage learned what it felt like to sleep in a real bed, with real sheets in a house where the doors didn't lock from the outside. At Pinehurst Elementary, the police cruiser carrying Wren and Leo pulled into the parking lot at 5:37 p.m. Rowan was at the window, had been at the window for the entire 30 minutes watching, waiting, his hands pressed against the glass so hard they'd left prints. When he saw the cruiser, he was out of the classroom before Marlowe could stop him. Down the hallway, through the front doors, across the parking lot. Officer Morrison barely had time to open the back door before Rowan reached it. Wren saw him and started crying. She scrambled out of the car, still holding Leo, and Rowan crashed into both of them so hard they all stumbled. He wrapped his arms around them, held them so tight it probably hurt, buried his face in Wren's hair and Leo's shoulder, and made a sound that wasn't quite crying, wasn't quite laughing, was something raw and broken and relieved. "I thought he was going to kill you," Rowan gasped. "I thought when he drove away, I thought..." "He didn't," Wren said. She was crying too. "You saved us. You saved us, Rowan." Leo had gone very still in their arms. His face was pressed against Rowan's shoulder and his small hands were gripping his brother's jacket, the faded denim jacket that had hidden 59 days of evidence. And then Leo spoke. "Rowan." Just one word, his brother's name. But it was the first word he'd spoken to Rowan directly in 2 months, and it meant everything. Rowan pulled back just enough to see Leo's face. "Hey, buddy," he said. His voice was shaking. "Hey, it's okay. We're okay now, all 3 of us." "Victor gone. Victor's gone. He can't hurt us anymore." "Promise?" Rowan looked up. Over Leo's head, he could see Bishop standing near the school entrance. The old biker met his eyes and nodded once, a promise made without words. "I promise," Rowan said. "Victor and Vanessa can't hurt us ever again." The three children stood there in the parking lot, holding each other, surrounded by 139 motorcycles and the people who dropped everything to save them. And for the first time in 7 months, they were safe, all three of them, together. At 6:15 p.m., Mark and Susan Brady arrived at the school. They were in their late 50s, both former teachers, licensed foster parents for 14 years. They'd taken in 23 children over those years, loved them, helped them heal, sent them off to better places when the time came. They'd gotten the call from investigator Brennan an hour ago. Three children, emergency placement, severe trauma, possible long-term placement if things went well. They'd said yes before Brennan finished the description. Now they stood in the classroom doorway looking at three children who were holding each other like they'd drown if they let go. Rowan saw them first, tensed, stepped in front of Ren and Leo instinctively. Susan saw the movement, understood what it meant. "You must be Rowan," she said. Her voice was soft, careful. "I'm Susan Brady. This is my husband, Mark. Investigator Brennan asked if you three could stay with us tonight." Rowan didn't move. "Where?" "Our house. About 20 minutes from here. We have 3 bedrooms made up, but if you want to all sleep in the same room tonight, that's fine too. Whatever makes you feel comfortable." "Are there locks?" Susan understood the question wasn't about security from the outside. "Not on the bedroom doors, sweetheart. You can come and go as you please." "What about food?" Mark stepped forward slowly, carefully, the way you approach a wounded animal. "We stopped at the store on the way here. We have eggs, bacon, bread, milk, fruit, cereal, pasta, chicken, vegetables, snacks. Whatever you're hungry for, we have it. And you can eat as much as you want. There's no limit." Rowan looked at Ren. She looked at Leo. Some silent conversation passed between them, years of reading each other's faces in the dark. "Okay," Rowan said finally, "but we stay together." "All 3 of you in one room," Susan confirmed. "You can decide later if you want separate rooms. For tonight, you stay together." They gathered their few belongings. Rowan had nothing but the clothes he was wearing and the jacket. Ren had her backpack with the notebook of drawings. Leo had nothing at all. As they headed toward the door, Bishop stopped them. "Rowan," he said, "one thing before you go." He pulled out his phone, showed the boy a photograph. An older man, maybe 35, standing next to a motorcycle, smiling. "This is Jake Miller. He's one of our brothers. He's going to be parked outside the Brady house tonight. Not inside, not watching you, just outside, on the street, making sure nothing bad happens." "Why?" "Because Victor Kane bonded out 40 minutes ago. He's out on bail. He won't come near you. There's a restraining order, and he'd go back to jail instantly. But until he's behind bars for good, we're making sure you're protected." Rowan looked at the photo, at Bishop, at the 139 motorcycles still idling in the parking lot. "You're staying?" he asked. "Even after we leave?" "Some of us, yes. Rotating shifts. 3 or 4 brothers outside the Brady house at all times. And if you need anything, if you're scared, if you can't sleep, if you just want someone to talk to you, tell Mr. or Mrs. Brady, and they'll call us. Day or night, we'll be there." "Why would you do that?" Bishop knelt down, eye level, the way he had when they'd first met 4 hours ago, though it felt like a lifetime. "Because 22 years ago, I couldn't protect my son, but I can protect you, and I will. Every day, until you're safe, until you're healed, until you believe deep in your bones that you're not disposable, that you matter, that someone is counting the days and showing up and refusing to look away." Rowan's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you," he whispered. Bishop squeezed his shoulder gently. "Thank you for being brave enough to survive, for protecting your brother and sister, for trusting Miss Quinn. You saved 3 lives today, son. Yours, Ren's, and Leo's. You're a hero." "I don't feel like a hero. I feel tired." "Then go rest. You've earned it." The Bradys led the 3 children out to their car. As they drove away, Rowan looked back through the rear window. 139 bikers stood in formation in the parking lot, watching, waiting, making sure he saw them, making sure he knew they weren't leaving. And as the car turned the corner and the school disappeared from view, Rowan felt something he hadn't felt in 7 months. Safe. The Brady house was small but warm. One-story ranch style with a front porch and a garden that Susan tended in the summers. The lights were on when they pulled up, yellow and welcoming through the windows. And parked on the street, exactly as Bishop had promised, was a motorcycle. The rider, Jake Miller, raised his hand in a simple wave as they passed. Inside, the house smelled like something baking. Susan had put cookies in the oven before they left timed, so they'd be ready when they got back. "You don't have to eat them if you don't want to," she said quickly. "But they're there if you're hungry." All three children stared at the plate of warm chocolate chip cookies like they were seeing a miracle. "Can we," Wren asked. "Take as many as you want," Mark said. Rowan took one, then another, then a third. Not because he was greedy, because he didn't know if there would be more later, and 7 months of starvation had taught him to eat when food was available. Susan saw it, understood it, hurt for it. "Rowan," she said gently, "those cookies aren't going anywhere. And when they're gone, we'll make more. You don't have to save them or ration them or worry that someone's going to take them away. This is your home now. The food here is your food. All of it, always." The words didn't compute at first. Rowan just stared at her. "Always," he repeated. "Always." Leo tugged on Rowan's sleeve. "Bathroom. Down the hall, second door on the left," Mark said. Leo looked at Rowan. Rowan looked at Mark. "Is it okay if I go with him?" Rowan asked. "Of course." They disappeared down the hallway together. Susan heard the bathroom door close, heard water running, heard Rowan's voice quiet and patient, explaining to Leo that yes, this was a real bathroom, with a real toilet, not a bucket, and yes, they could use it whenever they needed to. When they came back, Wren was standing at the window looking out at the street where Jake Miller sat on his motorcycle under a street light. "He's really staying out there all night?" she asked. "Yes," Susan said. "Why?" "Because you're worth protecting." Wren turned from the window. Her eyes were wet. "Nobody's ever said that to us before." Susan's heart broke. She wanted to hug this child, to pull all three of them close and promise that everything would be okay now, but she'd fostered enough traumatized children to know that touch had to be earned, that trust took time, that healing was measured in months and years, not hours and days. So instead, she just said, "Well, we're saying it now, and we'll keep saying it until you believe it." At 8 p.m., the three children were shown to the bedroom. One room with three beds, just as Susan had promised. Real beds with real mattresses and real pillows and real sheets. Leo stood in the doorway and stared. "This is ours," he asked. "This is yours," Mark confirmed. "Nobody's going to lock the door. No locks, and if you need anything during the night, you just come find us. Our room is right across the hall." Rowan walked to the nearest bed, sat down on it cautiously like he expected it to collapse. When it held his weight, he pressed his hand against the mattress. Soft, clean. Nothing like the stain-thin mats on the concrete garage floor. "Is this real?" he whispered. Susan sat down beside him. Not too close, just close enough. "It's real, sweetheart. This is your room. These are your beds. This is your home for as long as you need it. What if Victor comes?" "He won't. There's a restraining order, and even if he tried, there's a very large man on a motorcycle outside who won't let him anywhere near this house." Rowan looked at the window, at the street beyond, at the steady presence of Jake Miller keeping watch. "Okay," he said finally. "Okay." The three children got ready for bed. Susan had bought them each new pajamas still in the package. Simple clothes that fit. Leo's had dinosaurs on them. He held them up and smiled, the first genuine smile any adult had seen from him in months. When they were changed and the lights were dimmed, all three children climbed into the same bed. The middle one. Rowan in the center, Ren and Leo pressed against him on either side. Old habits, old survival patterns. They'd slept like this in the garage, using each other's body heat to stay warm on the coldest nights, finding safety in proximity when everything else was dangerous. Susan didn't correct them, didn't suggest they use separate beds, just tucked the blanket around all three of them and said goodnight. She was almost to the door when Rowan spoke. "Mrs. Brady." "Yes, honey. Tomorrow, can I go to school tomorrow?" Susan turned. "You want to go to school?" "Miss Quinn's classroom. That's where I felt safe. I don't want to lose that." "You won't lose it, Rowan. Miss Quinn will still be your teacher. You'll go to school tomorrow and every day after that. I promise." "Okay." His voice was getting sleepy now. "Okay, thank you." "You're welcome, sweetheart. Sleep well." She turned off the light and closed the door most of the way. Not all the way. She'd learned that traumatized children need to see the light from the hallway, need to know they're not locked in, not trapped. In the bedroom, Rowan lay in the dark and listened to the sounds of the house. The hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of Mark and Susan talking quietly in the kitchen, the tick of a clock somewhere. Normal sounds, safe sounds. He was asleep in 5 minutes. For the first time in 7 months, he slept through the night without waking once. 3 months passed. Summer arrived in Colorado with the kind of heat that made the asphalt shimmer and the mountain peaks shine white against an impossibly blue sky. The kind of weather that should have meant freedom for children, swimming pools and ice cream trucks, and long days with nothing to do but play. For Rowan Cole, summer meant therapy. 3 times a week, he sat in Dr. Rachel Kim's office and talked about things 9-year-olds shouldn't have to know. About hunger and fear and the sound a deadbolt makes when it slides closed from the outside. About learning to sleep with one eye open. About the weight of keeping two younger siblings alive when you're barely alive yourself. Dr. Kim was patient. She had kind eyes and a voice that never pushed, never demanded. She had toys in her office, building blocks, and art supplies, and a sand tray, and she let Rowan choose how to communicate. Some days he talked. Some days he built towers out of blocks and knocked them down. Some days he just sat and stared out the window at the parking lot where Mark Brady waited, reading a book, always there when the session ended. The nightmares were getting better. Rowan only woke up screaming twice a week now instead of every night. The flashbacks were less frequent. The constant hypervigilance, the need to know where every adult was, at all times the compulsion to check locks and count food was slowly, painfully beginning to ease. But some things hadn't changed. He still wore the jacket sometimes, the faded blue denim one that Marlo Quinn had counted for 59 days. Susan had offered to wash it to mend the frayed cuffs, but Rowan had asked her not to. It was his armor, his reminder. The physical proof that someone had noticed, had counted, had cared. He still gave half his food to Leo at breakfast, until Mark gently told him that there was always more, that Leo could have seconds and thirds and fourths, that nobody was going to go hungry in this house ever. He still checked the bedroom door every night before bed, still tested the handle to make sure it turned, still slept better when he could see the light from the hallway. Ren was healing too in her own way. She'd stopped drawing the dark pictures. The garage, the bruises, the names on the wall, those images had stopped appearing in her notebooks. Instead, she drew gardens, bright flowers and butterflies, and trees with birds in the branches. She drew the Brady house with all the lights on. She drew herself and Rowan and Leo holding hands under a sun that took up half the page. Dr. Kim said the art was a good sign. It meant Ren was starting to imagine a future that wasn't defined by the past. Leo talked now. Not a lot. He was still quiet, still shy, still prone to hiding behind Rowan when strangers came near. But he used words, full sentences. He told Susan when he was hungry. He told Mark about the dinosaur book he was reading. He sang along with the radio in the car. And every night before bed, he asked Rowan to sing the bear song. Even though they weren't in the garage anymore, even though they were safe, the song meant something deeper than the words. It meant Rowan was there. It meant they were together. It meant everything was going to be okay. The trial was scheduled for August 15th. Prosecutor Angela Torres had spent 3 months building her case with the kind of meticulous attention that came from personal investment. She told Rowan her story one afternoon in her office about being 9 years old and trying to save a boy named Danny Kane, about testifying against his foster parents, about not being believed because she was just a child and children lie and adults know better, about Danny dying at 11 and Angela spending the next 20 years making sure it never happened again. I became a prosecutor for Danny, she told Rowan, but I'm trying this case with you, for Ren and Leo, for Caleb and Emma, for every child Victor and Vanessa Kane destroyed. Now it was the night before the trial and Rowan couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, his own bed. Now he'd graduated to sleeping separately from Ren and Leo about a month ago and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would have to walk into a courtroom and sit in a witness chair and tell strangers what had been done to him. Tell them about the belt and the bucket and the garage and the hunger. Tell them while Victor and Vanessa sat 20 feet away watching him. The thought made his stomach hurt. There was a soft knock on his door. Rowan, Mark's voice. You awake? Yeah. Mark opened the door. He was in his bathrobe glasses, slightly askew, looking like he'd been woken up by his own worry about this child who'd come to them broken and was slowly, carefully putting himself back together. Can't sleep, Mark asked. Rowan shook his head. Mark sat down on the edge of the bed. You scared about tomorrow? Yeah. That's normal. It's okay to be scared. What if I mess up? What if I forget something important? What if, Rowan's voice cracked, what if they don't believe me? Mark was quiet for a moment. Then he said, Can I tell you something? Something I learned when I was a teacher. Rowan nodded. The truth doesn't need to be perfect to be believed. It just needs to be true. You're not going to be tested on every detail. You're not going to be graded on your performance. You're just going to tell your story. What happened, how it felt, what you saw, and the jury will believe you because the truth has a sound to it that lies don't. Even when it's messy, even when it's incomplete, especially when it comes from a child who has nothing to gain by making it up. But Victor and Vanessa will be there. Yes, but so will we. Susan and I will be in that courtroom. Bishop and Barrett and Marlowe will be there. Dr. Kim will be there. And when you look up from that witness stand and you need to see a friendly face, you'll find one. More than one. You'll be surrounded by people who believe you. Rowan absorbed this, turned it over in his mind. Mr. Brady, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Caleb and Emma would be proud of me for testifying? Mark's eyes got wet. He blinked quickly, but not quickly enough. I think they'd be grateful beyond words. I think they'd want you to know that you're doing what they couldn't do. You're speaking for them, giving them a voice, making sure their deaths meant something. I don't want to let them down. You won't. You couldn't. Just by being brave enough to show up tomorrow, you've already honored them more than you know. Rowan was quiet for a long moment. Then will you stay until I fall asleep? Of course. Mark stayed, sat in the chair by Rowan's bed and talked quietly about nothing important. About the baseball game on TV earlier. About the garden Susan was planning for next spring. About how Leo had asked if they could get normal things, safe things, the kind of boring, mundane topics that meant everything to a child who'd spent 7 months in hell. Rowan fell asleep 20 minutes later. Mark stayed for another hour just watching this boy breathe, watching him sleep without nightmares for once. And he made a silent promise to Caleb and Emma and every other child who died in the Kane house. Tomorrow justice would be served. The courthouse was a fortress of granite and glass in downtown Denver. Built in the 1970s, renovated in the early 2000s, it had the kind of institutional weight that made everyone who entered it lower their voice and straighten their posture. Rowan walked up the front steps between Mark and Susan Wren and Leo just behind them. Dr. Kim walked alongside, providing a buffer between the children and the reporters who'd gathered on the sidewalk. Because this case had become news, not just local news, national. The story of three children rescued from a garage by a teacher who counted days in a motorcycle club that showed up when the system failed had captured something in the public consciousness. Cable news had done segments. Podcasts had devoted episodes. Social media had made Rowan's faded blue denim jacket into a symbol. 59 days, someone counted. 139 showed up. The hashtag had gone viral. But walking through that crowd of cameras and microphones and shouted questions, Rowan didn't feel like a symbol. He felt like a 9-year-old boy who wanted to throw up. Susan's hand was on his shoulder, steady and warm. Almost there, sweetheart. Just keep walking. Don't look at them. Look at me. He looked at her kind face and her gray hair and her eyes that had never once looked at him with anything but compassion. They made it through the doors, through security, down the hallway to courtroom 4C, and there waiting outside the courtroom was an army. Bishop stood at the center wearing a suit instead of his leather vest for the first time Rowan had ever seen. He looked strange in it, uncomfortable, but his presence was the same solid, immovable, a mountain in human form. Around him stood 30 Hells Angels members. They'd all worn suits, too. Some of them looked more natural in formal wear than others. But all of them had shown up because when one of their own, and Rowan was one of them, now had been since the day he showed his bruises to Marlo. Quinn needed support, you showed up. Marlo was there too, wearing a navy dress and the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing you were going to testify. Barrett stood beside her, one hand on her shoulder, grounding her the same way she'd grounded Rowan 59 days ago. Ledger was there with his laptop, ready to provide financial testimony. Echo was there with his recordings and research. Doc Miller was there along with Carol, the school nurse. And in the front row of the gallery, Miranda Hayes sat with her hands folded in her lap and her eyes fixed straight ahead. 20 years old now, a survivor, ready to tell her story. When Rowan entered, Bishop stepped forward. You ready? He asked quietly. Rowan shook his head. No. Good. If you weren't nervous, I'd be worried. Means you understand how important this is. What if I freeze up there? What if I can't talk? Bishop knelt down. They'd had this conversation before, but some fears needed to be addressed multiple times before they lost their teeth. If you freeze, we'll wait. If you need a break, we'll take one. If you need to cry, you cry. There's no wrong way to do this, Rowan. The only thing that matters is that you tell the truth as best you can. And if the truth is I don't remember or I'm too scared to answer that, then that's the truth. They can't force you to be more than you are. The courtroom doors opened. A bailiff stepped out. We're ready for you. Rowan took a deep breath. Susan squeezed his shoulder. Wren reached out and grabbed his hand. You can do this, she whispered. You're the bravest person I know. I'm not brave, I'm terrified. Brave is being terrified and doing it anyway. They filed into the courtroom. It was smaller than Rowan had imagined. He'd seen courtrooms on TV, huge spaces with high ceilings and dramatic lighting. This one was functional. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, rows of benches for observers. The judge's bench at the front elevated. 2 tables facing it, one for the prosecution, one for the defense. And sitting at the defense table wearing suits that made them look like different people were Victor and Vanessa Kane. Rowan stopped walking. His breath caught in his chest. His vision tunneled. For a moment, he was back in the garage, hearing Victor's footsteps on the stairs, hearing the deadbolt slide open, knowing what was coming. Susan felt him freeze. Rowan. He couldn't speak, couldn't move. Bishop appeared on his other side, leaned down close enough that only Rowan could hear him. Look at me, not them. Look at my eyes. Rowan tore his gaze away from Victor and Vanessa and focused on Bishop. They can't hurt you anymore, Bishop said, each word deliberate, firm. They're in cuffs. There are guards between you and them. And if they so much as look at you wrong, they go back to jail. You are safe, right here, right now, safe. Rowan's breathing started to slow. That's it, in through your nose, out through your mouth. You've got this. They made it to the front row. Rowan sat between Susan and Bishop. Ren and Leo were on Susan's other side, with Mark creating a wall between them and the rest of the courtroom. Judge Richard Calloway entered. Everyone stood. The formalities began. Opening statements. Prosecutor Torres stood first. She was 45 years old, with the kind of presence that filled a room without needing volume. Her voice was measured, controlled, carrying the weight of 2 decades of fighting for children who couldn't fight for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, she began, this case is about two things, money and murder. She let that sit for a moment. Victor and Vanessa Kane operated a criminal enterprise disguised as foster care. Over 6 years, they collected $680,000 in state funds, meant to feed, clothe, and shelter 14 vulnerable children. They spent $31,000. They pocketed the rest. Torres pulled up a chart on the screen. The jury could see the numbers. The stark contrast between money received and money spent. But the money was just the beginning, because Victor and Vanessa Kane discovered something profitable. Life insurance. They learned that if you place a child collect payments for 6 to 8 months, purchase a life insurance policy, and then arrange an accident, a drowning, a fall, a tragic misfortune, you can collect tens of thousands of dollars in payouts. And then you can request a new child and start the process over. A murmur went through the courtroom. Caleb Whitmore was 7 years old. He drowned in a bathtub. The Canes collected $75,000. Torres pulled up Caleb's photo, a small boy with brown hair and a gap-toothed smile. Emma Reeves was 9 years old. She fell downstairs. The Canes collected $120,000. Emma's photo appeared beside Caleb's. Long hair, bright eyes, alive in a way that made her death feel impossibly cruel. And 6 weeks before their arrest, Victor Kane purchased a $60,000 life insurance policy on 9-year-old Rowan Cole. The effective date was May 22nd, one day before a planned camping trip to the mountains, a trip where only Rowan and the Canes were scheduled to go. Torres turned to face the jury directly. The state will prove that these were not accidents. These were not cases of overwhelmed foster parents making mistakes. This was systematic, calculated murder for profit. And Rowan Cole is alive today only because a teacher started counting days and a community refused to look away. She sat down. The defense attorney stood next. His name was Robert Marsh, and he had the kind of expensive suit and practiced sincerity that came from 30 years of defending people who could afford his retainer. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard a compelling story, a horrifying story. But that's all it is, a story. The prosecution wants you to believe that my clients are monsters, that they systematically murdered children for insurance money. But where's the proof? Where are the witnesses to these alleged murders? Where is the physical evidence that proves malicious intent rather than tragic accident? He paced slowly in front of the jury box. What you will see in this trial is evidence of two people who dedicated their lives to helping troubled children. Children that nobody else wanted, children with behavioral issues, trauma histories, attachment disorders, children who require enormous patience and resources to care for. Were Victor and Vanessa Kane perfect? No. Did they make mistakes? Yes. Did they sometimes struggle to manage extremely difficult children? Absolutely. But struggling is not the same as abusing, and tragedy is not the same as murder. He looked at the jury with practiced sympathy. I ask you to remember as you hear the testimony in this case that children with trauma sometimes fabricate stories, sometimes confuse discipline with abuse, sometimes cannot distinguish between reality and their own fears. And I ask you to remember that in America, we don't convict people based on suspicion. We convict them based on proof beyond a reasonable doubt. He sat down. Judge Calloway looked at Torres. Call your first witness. The state calls Dr. William Miller. Doc Miller took the stand. He testified in dozens of cases over his career. Medical evidence, injury documentation. He knew how to walk a jury through trauma without drowning them in clinical terminology. Torres walked him through Rowan's injuries. The photographs appeared on the screen, and several jury members flinched. Dr. Miller, in your professional opinion, are these injuries consistent with accidental harm? No, ma'am. These injuries show a clear pattern of repeated intentional abuse by an adult over a period of months. How can you tell? The bruising is in multiple stages of healing. Purple bruises that are fresh, yellow and green bruises that are older. This indicates repeated trauma over time, not a single incident. Additionally, the finger-shaped marks on the forearms match an adult male hand. The belt mark across the shoulder blade is consistent with being struck with a leather belt. And the partially healed rib fracture shows impact trauma that was never medically treated. In your experience, could a child self-inflict these injuries? No, the pattern, location, and severity are inconsistent with self-harm. The defense attorney cross-examined, tried to suggest that Rowan might have gotten the injuries from fights with other children from playing too rough from falls. Doc shut it down methodically. Sir, I've treated pediatric trauma for 35 years. These are not playground injuries. These are the injuries of a child being systematically beaten by an adult. Next came Carol, the nurse. She walked the jury through her documentation. The weight chart showing Rowan's decline from October to May, the measurements of the bruises, the photographic evidence with rulers for scale. Then Ledger took the stand. For 4 hours, he walked the jury through the financial evidence, bank statements, credit card transactions, foster care payment records, insurance policies. Mr. Collins, can you summarize the financial activity you uncovered? Ledger adjusted his glasses. Over 6 years, the Canes received $680,000 in foster care payments. They spent approximately $31,000 on actual child care expenses, food, clothing, basic necessities. The remaining $649,000 went to personal expenses, home renovations, vehicle purchases, luxury items, and the insurance policies. 3 total, one on Caleb Whitmore for $75,000, one on Emma Reeves for $120,000, one on Rowan Cole for $60,000. All 3 policies were purchased within 30 days of each child's placement with the Canes. All 3 listed Victor and Vanessa as beneficiaries. What's significant about that timing? Most foster parents don't purchase life insurance on children immediately upon placement. The fact that the Canes did so consistently and that 2 of those children died under suspicious circumstances resulting in payouts establishes a pattern. And in your professional opinion, having investigated financial crimes for 22 years, how would you characterize this pattern? This is a criminal enterprise structured around the exploitation and disposal of foster children for financial gain. The defense tried to poke holes, suggested the insurance was just responsible planning, that the spending patterns were normal for a middle-class family. Ledger didn't budge. Sir, responsible foster parents don't profit $600,000 while feeding children rice and crackers. And they certainly don't purchase $60,000 life insurance policies on 9-year-olds one day before taking them on isolated camping trips. Day 2 of the trial brought Miranda Hayes to the stand. She walked to the witness chair with her shoulders back and her head high. 20 years old, survivor. Ready to speak the truth, she'd been silenced. From speaking at 12, Torres approached gently. Miss Hayes, can you tell the jury about your time with Victor and Vanessa Kane? Miranda took a breath. I was placed with them in January 2019. I was 12 years old. I stayed for 11 months. Where did you sleep? The garage. There was a deadbolt on the outside of the door. Victor locked it every night at 10 p.m. There were mattresses on the concrete floor, no sheets, no heat. There was a bucket in the corner for bathroom needs. The jury was riveted. This was the first direct testimony about the garage, about the conditions these children had lived in. Were you physically abused? Yes. Victor used his belt when we made mistakes. Vanessa held us down so we couldn't fight back. Did you report this abuse? Twice. I told my caseworker twice. She wrote in my file that I had a history of fabrication, that I was making up stories for attention. She said troubled children sometimes do that. Miranda's voice was steady, but her hands were clenched in her lap. Why didn't you report it again after you aged out of the system? Because at 12 years old, I learned that my truth didn't matter, that adults would always believe other adults over children, that speaking up just made things worse. She looked directly at the jury. I'm testifying now because Rowan Cole is 9 years old and he told the truth and someone finally believed him. And because Caleb was 7 and Emma was 9 and they told the truth too, and nobody listened, and now they're dead. There wasn't a sound in the courtroom. I'm here because my silence lets this continue, and I'm done being silent. The defense tried to discredit her, brought up her file, the notes about fabrication, suggested she was an unreliable narrator with a history of lying. Miranda looked at the defense attorney with eyes that had seen too much. Sir, I didn't lie then and I'm not lying now. I was a 12-year-old girl telling the truth about being abused. The adults chose not to believe me. That's on them, not me. Then it was time for Rowan. The bailiff called his name. The state calls Rowan Cole. Rowan stood. His legs felt like water. Susan squeezed his hand one last time. Bishop gave him a single nod. He walked to the witness stand. The bailiff held out a Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. His voice came out smaller than he'd intended. A 9-year-old's voice in a room full of adults who would decide his fate and the fate of the people who tortured him. He sat down. The chair was too big. His feet didn't touch the floor. Judge Calloway noticed and had the bailiff bring over a box for him to rest his feet on. Torres approached slowly, kindly. Rowan, I know this is scary. If you need a break at any time, you just let me know. Okay. He nodded. Can you tell the jury your name and age? Rowan Cole, I'm 9, almost 10. And do you know why you're here today? To tell the truth about Victor and Vanessa Kane. Are you afraid of them? Rowan looked at the defense table. Victor was staring straight ahead, face blank. Vanessa had tears on her cheeks, but they looked practiced. Performed. Yes, Rowan said. I'm afraid of them. That's okay. Being afraid is normal. Can you tell the jury where you lived before you came to stay with Mark and Susan Brady? With Victor and Vanessa Kane on Cedar Brook Lane. And where did you sleep in that house? The garage. Can you describe the garage for us? Rowan's hands were shaking. He gripped the arms of the chair. It was concrete, cold. There were 3 mattresses on the floor for me and Ren and Leo. No sheets, no blankets. There was a bucket in the corner for when we needed to use the bathroom at night. And there was a dead bolt on the outside of the door. Victor locked it every night at 10. What happened if you needed to use the bathroom during the night? We used the bucket, all 3 of us. A female juror put her hand over her mouth. Were you fed regular meals? No, ma'am. Vanessa gave us leftovers. Sometimes rice, sometimes crackers. Most days I didn't eat until lunch at school. Did you ever give your food to your brother and sister? Yes, Leo's only 5. He needs food more than I do. Rowan, did Victor Kane ever hit you? The courtroom went absolutely silent. Yes, ma'am. How often? 2 or 3 times a week, more if we made mistakes. What did he hit you with? His belt mostly, sometimes his fists. Once he kicked me in the ribs when I tried to stop him from hurting Leo. Torres pulled up the x-ray, showed the fractured rib. Is this your x-ray? Yes, ma'am. Did Victor take you to a doctor after he broke your rib? No, ma'am. How long did it hurt? It still hurts sometimes when I breathe wrong. Because the last time I told the truth at a different foster home, nobody believed me, and they sent me somewhere worse. I learned that telling the truth doesn't help when adults have already decided who to believe. The words hung in the air. The truth from a child who'd been failed by every system meant to protect him. Torres showed him the insurance document. Rowan, do you recognize this? He looked at it. His hands were shaking harder now. That's a life insurance policy with my name on it. Do you know who purchased it? Victor Kane. Do you know when it was purchased? 6 weeks before Miss Quinn kept me after class. And do you know about the camping trip Victor had planned? Rowan's breathing was getting faster, shallower. He said we were going camping May 23rd, just me and him and Vanessa. He said it would be fun, fishing and hiking. I thought maybe he was trying to be nice, that maybe things were getting better. Did you know about the insurance policy at that time? No, ma'am. I found out later, after the police came. How did it make you feel when you learned Victor had purchased life insurance on you? Rowan looked directly at Victor Kane for the first time. It made me feel like I was never a person to him. I was a number, like a receipt, something you cash in when you're done with it. Victor flinched, looked away. One more question, Rowan. Why did you finally tell Miss Quinn the truth? Because I was tired of being brave. I was tired of protecting Ren and Leo all by myself. I was tired of being hungry and scared and hurt. And because she counted, 59 days she counted, and I thought maybe if she was paying that much attention, maybe she'd believe me. Maybe she'd help. And did she? Yes, ma'am, she called her brother, and he called Bishop. And 139 people showed up at my school to save me and Ren and Leo. They showed up when nobody else would. Torres nodded. Thank you, Rowan. No further questions. The defense attorney stood. Robert Marsh approached the witness stand with carefully calculated sympathy. Rowan, I know this has been hard for you. I just have a few questions. Rowan waited. You said you were tired of being brave. That suggests you felt you had to be strong for your siblings. Is that correct? Yes, sir. And children who feel they have to be strong sometimes exaggerate situations to get help. Is that possible? Torres was on her feet. Objection, leading and argumentative. Sustained, Marsh tried again. Rowan, did you ever see Victor or Vanessa kill Caleb Whitmore or Emma Reeves? No, sir. They were dead before I got there. So you don't actually know if their deaths were accidents or not, do you? I know what Ren heard. She heard Vanessa say, do it quick like Emma. That's not an accident. But you didn't hear that yourself. No, sir. And isn't it possible that you misunderstood what was happening, that Victor and Vanessa were trying to help you, and you perceived their discipline as abuse? Rowan stared at him. At this man in his expensive suit trying to twist the truth into something palatable for a jury. Sir, Rowan said quietly, I weighed 52 pounds. I had bruises shaped like Victor's fingers. I had a broken rib. I slept on concrete in a garage with a bucket for a bathroom. That's not discipline. That's torture. The courtroom was dead silent. Marsh had no response. He sat down. Redirect, the judge asked Torres. Just one question, Your Honor. Torres stood. Rowan, are you telling the truth today? Yes, ma'am, every word. Thank you. No further questions. Rowan was excused. He walked back to his seat on legs that barely held him. When he sat down between Susan and Bishop, he started to shake. Not crying, just shaking. The adrenaline draining out of him all at once. Susan pulled him close. Bishop's hand landed on his shoulder, solid and grounding. You did it, Bishop whispered. You did it, son. You told the truth and they heard you. The trial continued for 3 more days. More witnesses, more evidence. The medical examiner who'd re-examined Caleb and Emma's bodies testified that both deaths were inconsistent with the original accident rulings. Caleb had no water in his lungs. He'd been drowned after death and placed in the bathtub to stage the scene. Emma's skull fractures didn't match a fall down stairs. They matched blunt force trauma from behind. Both deaths were homicides. Victor Kane, you are sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Additionally, I am recommending that the district attorney pursue additional murder charges in the deaths of the 7 other children whose names were found on your garage wall. He turned to Vanessa. My name is Rowan Brady, he said into the microphone. His voice was stronger now, more confident. I'm 10 years old. I'm in 4th grade. I have a family. I have enough to eat. I have people who love me. He held up the faded blue denim jacket, the one Marlo Quinn had counted for 59 days. But I almost didn't have any of that. If Miss Quinn hadn't noticed, if she hadn't counted, if she hadn't called her brother, If 139 people hadn't shown up at my school that day, I'd still be in that garage, or worse. He looked out at the crowd, at Bishop and Barrett and Marlowe, at Susan and Mark and Dr. Kim, at Miranda Hayes, who'd flown in from Wyoming just for this event, at the dozens of bikers who'd formed a wall of protection around three terrified children and refused to move until they were safe. Caleb Whitmore was 7 years old. Emma Reeves was 9. They didn't get to stand here and tell their stories. They didn't get to grow up. They didn't get justice while they were alive. He folded the jacket carefully. But they have it now. Victor and Vanessa Kane are in prison for the rest of their lives. And everyone who sees this jacket in the museum will know that someone counted. Someone showed up. Someone refused to look away. He held the jacket up one more time. You don't need a motorcycle to save someone. You don't need 100 friends. You just need eyes that see, a voice that speaks, and the courage to say something is wrong even when everyone else pretends everything is fine. The room was silent except for the sound of people crying. Miss Quinn counted 59 days. 139 people showed up. 2 monsters stopped. 3 children saved. That's all it took. He stepped down from the stage. Bishop met him at the bottom, pulled him into a hug that smelled like leather and motor oil and safety. Danny would be proud of you, Bishop whispered. So damn proud. I wish I could have saved him too. You did, son. Every time you tell your story, every time someone hears it and decides to count, to notice, to speak up, you save another Danny, you save another Caleb, another Emma. You save children we'll never meet because they'll never end up in that garage in the first place.